Welcome to How Do Educators Learn broadcast program organized by the Hong Kong Federation of Youth Groups. I am Annette, a student from the University of Hong Kong and your MC in this exciting event. In this broadcast series, we have various educators who share with us strategies and technologies to enhance their reading proficiency. And today, I am very honored to introduce to you all the esteemed Professor Zhang Xiang, President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Hong Kong, to share with us his insights and experiences. We also have 6 brilliant secondary school students here with us. These students represent the future of education, and they have a keen interest in learning, reading, and writing. In fact, I know that Leah is the awardee of this year's school writer competition. So as an avid writer and also reader yourself, what would you like to know from Professor Zhang?
Good afternoon, Professor Zhang, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Leah Lai from Good Hope School, and I would like to ask Professor Zhang, so in what ways do you think that the advancement of technology will affect the reading habits of people?
Wow, that's a good question. In fact, it's going to affect a lot. You know, today there's AI and many of online techniques and so on. So our reading will be fundamentally challenged from just reading a paper book, right? Today you read a lot probably from online. So that's going to be very different. Now, when you read from online, there's audio as well. Sometimes I like audiobook. When I was small, actually, like your age, I like listening audiobook as well. So the book and also the form of communication through the book is very different. It's no longer just the paper book. So I think there will be, for example, human has a 6th sense, but at least we use 2 senses, the eye and ear, to hear and to read, to see. So at least now that doubles channels now, you know. So it will change a lot, but on the one hand, it will increase the density of the information we are intake to our brain and so on. So we have to process much faster. At the same time, our attention, the way how we think, whether the speed of thinking is catching up with what we read, that's the other question. So a lot of interesting for educators to study, but for our students, I guess, of course, on one hand, we see a lot more availabilities of different technologies and so on, but at the same time, we have to think hard, what do we read and how we think. So these are the 2 things we have to think hard.
It is really interesting to hear that you also use audiobooks. So do you think that audiobooks or hard copy of books, which one of them will enhance people's reading skills more, or do you think it's somewhat similar?
Very different. When I grew up back in mainland China, that time there was not much of TV, just a radio. And you turn the radio at a certain time and you're listening this famous novels through the reading. And then actually you close your eye, not reading anything, but you're listening. That gives you much more imagination because the whole pictures show up in your brain and so on. So I find an audiobook or audio broadcasting, you through that reading, it's quite interesting. Personally, I actually encourage a lot of my friends' kids to take an audiobook because that expands your imagination because you don't just read, you imagine a lot. But of course, traditional reading is very important. We do that every classroom, every typical books and exams and so on. We have to read. But that's, I think the audiobook is also interesting form.
I think that for audiobooks, it may be more convenient. So even when you're transporting, you can still listen to the book.
Yes.
Yeah. I know that Megan also has a question related to learning because you mentioned about learning just now.
Yes, good afternoon, Professor Zhang. So I am Megan, and I would like to ask you, are there any recommendations for students who would like to learn more ways to study efficiently? Any book recommendations? Thank you.
Now, of course, there are a lot of good books, Megan, out there to study how efficiently. There are also some online training techniques. You view free training things that you can train how you move your eyeball and to do faster, and then you can digest fast reading, right? There are many of these techniques you can check online. But there's one book I would like to think, well, 2 books. One is called How to Make a Smart Note. Now, reading is one thing. There's a book, maybe 300 page or 200 page, but how you condense them into 10 page of note, abstract. That's art. I found that actually when I was in secondary school, which is very important. When you listen to a lecture, the teacher teaches about 15 minutes, but how you condense that into one page of, very essential part of it, whether equation or statement or something very essential, right? So how you condense that book from 100 page to one page. That book, I forgot the author. I think it's called Ahrens, A-H-R-E-N-S, Ahrens. And that book is about how you take a smart notes. And that is a very, very interesting book. And the other book is not all about the reading, but about critical thinking. I think it's called Critical Thinking Skills by Correll, C-O-T-T-R-E-L-L. I think that's the author. Yeah, so these two books I highly recommend it. Especially critical thinking is not only we read, but how we digest it and critically think. A lot of time I would encourage, and later on we can talk more about how we really enhance our ability to think out of the box, to be innovative. Those are the things beyond reading, yeah.
Thank you.
Just now you mentioned that it's really difficult to condense maybe a research paper of 100 pages to just one abstract. So I know that Professor Zhang is also a renowned scientist and you have a lot of publications. And today our students, knowing that you're also a really bright scientist, want to ask you something related to technology and sustainability. So may we invite Yo-Yo to ask the first question?
Good afternoon, Professor Zhang, and also good afternoon, everybody. I'm Yo Lai, and I know that HKU discussed the solutions for a sustainable future in the APRU. And do you think that giving youngsters more opportunities can help develop a more sustainable future?
Yes, as you all see, in Hong Kong it's not too bad this summer, but in Europe, in Canada, now there's huge fire, they burn a lot of acres of lands and so on. And in China, India, heat waves, it's just huge. We see that last 2 weeks, right? And it's not going to go away. The rest of summer, we'll continue to see this. So this global warming and also related with all the extreme weather is going to impact us. Agriculture, our food, the price will go up because of this. And some people died, and there's a flood because of these extreme weathers. So really, we're reaching the point that we have to take seriously. When I was a student, people talk about sustainability. We smile at it, say, well, this will be a long time, 100 years later and something. But today, we do see the facts. It's coming. So if the Earth is continuing warming up, see actually in the even in the Arctic, the ices start melting as well. So these are really critical signs, and it's a warning to our humankind. Our race, whether we can survive the other few hundred years or 1,000 years, is really it's coming up, the question. So sustainability, how we live, of course, humans are the problem creator. We drive cars, we take airplanes, we burn a lot of fuels and CO2 emission. That's how caused the emission of CO2, carbon dioxide into atmosphere that caused the warming of the globally. And we use air conditioning in this room too. When I arrived Hong Kong 5 years ago, now I don't complain, but in the beginning I complained that my office or some of the conference room is too cold. Now I have a theory. I say, well, maybe people of Hong Kong likes to have a dress formally and so on, have layers. So you need the room to be relatively cold. But that actually we have to think about way to change it, way of life. Do we have to dress, this much of layers? And also, can we create a technology to counter that? For example, air conditioning. By using the electricity here, we burn the coal. Right, or some other forms to generate, most of the time by the coal. So you have a CO2 emission because we use a lot of electricity. So how we developed air conditioner without using electricity. So that's a huge science problem. Now, a group of Hong Kong U professors developed air conditioning without using electricity technology. It's a breakthrough. named the top 10 breakthrough in the world. And now, actually, their companies are making the product. In fact, the first product are piloting in the Singapore airport, because Singapore is very hot. Their airport has a lot of glass. So essentially, you use actually panel of glass and put the special materials, which is like your kitchen foil, these plastics, on the glass that can passively cool down the room like this, 5 or 6 degrees, without using electricity. So that's a wonderful science behind it. Okay, it's about electromagnetic waves, Maxwell equation, all of this. You probably see when you get into the college. These are foundational equations of mathematics, physics, which are behind the new technology to be invented. And you are going to be an inventor, soon.
And you have mentioned that there's a lot of interesting science, a lot of research is being published. But then coming to secondary school students, when they may not have such a strong scientific foundation, but they want to learn more about sustainable development or generally learn about different technologies, what do you recommend to be nice ways for them to get in touch with these sorts of new technologies?
Well, there are many ways to look at this information now. Your generation is a very lucky one. Though you're facing the global challenge of this global warming and so on, but at the same time, your access of knowledge is much, much broader spectrum than when I grew up. We have books at the time. So books is very important for my age when I was young. But for you guys, you can go online, Google what are the sustainable technologies, and for example, whether it's a solar panel, solar energy, or wind turbine, which can generate electricity on the ocean as well. So all of these are available. You can Google online, or you can buy some books. And I'm sure in this week's books exhibition, there will be some technology books talk about new form of energy, so-called renewable energy. These are the energy can regenerate it and then can be used without generate CO2 emission.
I know Emily is waiting to ask her question because she actually has a question related to renewable energy.
Oh.
Yeah, so now we know that there are a lot of different ways of getting clean and renewable energy from clean sources like wind energy, sun, solar energy. But like these solar panels and wind turbines, they only work under certain conditions, and they need to be constantly checked, and they might not work sometime. So do you think these clean energy sources can really just solely provide humans with all the energy that they need? So is it enough?
Very good question. So-called renewable energy, as I explained, that doesn't have to use something to burn the coal or generate emission and so on. So those are desired energy source. For example, from the sun, from the solar, right, as you mentioned. And then the other is from the wind, where especially in the ocean, like in Hong Kong Island, if you're floating these big turbines around it, you generate a lot of energy. So, but there are challenges, as you mentioned. For example, for solar, only works in the daytime. In the evening, there's no sunlight, right? So then you have a lot of energy coming in the daytime, but after dark, you don't have energy. And people need energy in the dark as well, right? So right now, a group of Hong Kong U professors are studying, this is a technology, how you actually store the energy from the daytime and then release that in the evening. So this is a huge research topic, and we have a group of famous professors study how you store the energy using the advanced battery technology. But the other question you raised up is, I mean, those things are huge and stay in your roof for years. But if you don't clean it, you have a dust and things, that will affect the sunlight to be absorbed, right? Maybe after 2 years, it gets so dirty, there's not much of sunlight can passing through this dust, right? So you need to clean it. Now, you may develop the wipers, like your car windshield and so on. There is one solution. And then there are some other people develop the technology. They have a special coating. This is also Hong Kong U professor looking at special coating on the glass or solar panel. So the dust cannot stick on the glass or panel. So you fall away. So that's the other way to look at it. But all of this technology, now there's a cost issue. When you become an engineer, you have to think about whether people buy it if you put too much of cost there, right? So those are the challenge. A lot of things to be worked out. And then there's the economics there too. How many people, how big the market, right? And there's frankly speaking, there's artistic view as well. If you put this roof on your roof, you may not like it because all the dark, you may like your roof a little bit nature looks. Or these wind turbines, if you're floating around Hong Kong Island, hey, you cannot take beautiful pictures, right? So all of this is a challenge. It's a multi-dimensional challenge, not only just the one technology issue. There's an economics issue. There's also the appearance, and people will need to look at all of this.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned really good issues like on sustainability and how science actually also correlates to art. So it's not only about technology, but it's also about how we can bring the technology so that it actually helps other people and how we can combine it with arts, architecture, a lot of different facets that are important to actually make that technology more easy to be popularized within that place and really enhance the quality of life of people. So now that we're on the topic of technology and the sustainability, maybe we'll see if we have any students here who would like to ask questions, because I know that all these bright students have prepared some questions for Professor Zhang as well. Is there anyone who would like to be the first one to ask questions?
Dear Professor Zhang, my name is Paul, and then my question is regarding to technology. Recently, in modern society, AI technology has been improving fast, exponentially since its existence. It is predicted to replace lots of jobs in the near future. So, it indirectly forces students to learn more and learn deeper in terms of technology field, like AI. So what advice would you give to students or educators for them to prepare in AI field?
That's a really good question. I'm afraid that one day AI will take my job and they don't need human MCs anymore. What is your view on AI then?
Yeah, actually, first, I'm excited about AI's arrival. Secondly, I have a fear. I may lose my teacher job as a president as well. Because, let's be very frank. If the student like you can freely learn from online and so on, and you think that your efficiency learning from online is better from the classroom, then we have to ask a deeper question. What do we offer in the secondary school, in the university, and so on? Are we meeting the society needs? But of course, teacher is not going to lose the job, because teachers, educators, we have to evolve as well. If we do the same old way teaching the blackboard and the whiteboard and so on, we may lose the job. But we have to innovate ourselves. In the future, if you learn that from a lot of online things, but still, for example, besides the knowledge you learn, there's something in Hong Kong we call campus life, where you experience the university campus and you interact with each other. Those are the things you don't learn from the classroom. So yes, classroom may be in a different form. Now teachers at that time maybe become more tutor-like, may guide you to look at different websites and different things, and maybe become your mentor in a way that answer questions or guide you to do something, rather than just teach the knowledge one way through a knowledge transfer, because you can learn knowledge elsewhere from other channels. So both students and teachers have to face this wave of AI, and it's coming, and it's going to be very exciting. But at the same time, some of the professions may face even more challenge than other professions. I'm talking about actually the white-collar jobs than blue-collar jobs. And the blue-collar jobs, actually, you need the drivers. Well, the drivers may be gone too, but you need a certain labor force, right, to move things around and so on. So, yeah, we have to really face this. But now, one thing will stay as a human race, will always be challenged and so on, is how we critically think. And from that, how we innovate. We can come up with something that, but by the way, AI still is a tool so far, and they may be passing our ability in some way, but I call it a human extender. All of you see the big machinery in Hong Kong construction, big cranes and so on. They can lift up tons of stuff human cannot do, but it's still operated by human, right? So I call it human extender. Now, until that point, the AI can generate their own intelligence. So far, we haven't seen that yet. They are big synthesizer, they are big information collector, and so on. They can collect information more than 10 years you can do in 1 second, right? They basically is like big cranes, human extender, amplifier. But so that will enable you to do a lot of things you cannot do. For example, collecting the information, you can synthesize a term paper and so on. Hopefully, nobody will cheat in the term paper. But that's a real question in Hong Kong U. We ask ourselves how we are going to deal with this, right? And so there's a lot of pros. It will increase the human productivity. Think about essentially you can have a big crane to lift tons of things. But at the same time, there's the challenges. Do we need a lot of people for some simple job, right? And all of this will challenge our education as well. So I guess the bottom line for our education, what left is how we can think critically and how we think creatively or innovatively. So those are the things our education, and machines so far, they haven't been able to be more imaginative than human yet. So until that point, we're still mastering. By the way, AI also, whether generative PowerPoint slides or term paper, they are actually live on, it's like a dog. You have to feed them. What the food is information online, and so they collect all the information. So somebody has generated that food. Who generated that food? We generate that food. Everybody posts their information and so on. But now, if we are all become spoiled or lazy and all AI, the robots doing everything, we don't generate content. At that point, AI will be starving as well. So think about that. AI lives on the food we supply them. So human AI has a relationship.
You also mentioned that we now can learn differently. Like we learn how to search for information online, and teachers may be more like tutors. And I know that in HKU medical and dental faculty, there's a type of learning called problem-based learning, where students are given a problem, a case, and then they search for information online, and then they present it to the tutor. So today we also have educators, school principals here actually. So from your point of view, what do you think that educators can do to provide more to students? You know, now that it's so advanced, maybe I can also input my information to ChatGPT, and GPT can actually respond to my information. Then in this case, what can tutors offer to students in a very unique way that other AI or other things cannot offer?
Very good question. Namely, this is what is our teacher or educator for, right? After AI's wave arrived. Indeed, as I mentioned earlier, a form kind of a tutor, where this tutor is not just take care of the simple thing, but challenge student critically. That will be our teacher's job. I think is more important, because AI is not going to challenge you on this critical thing. So teacher will ask, very intriguing questions, ask you to think out of box, and you have to compete with yourself, and who comes with the most creative ideas, out-of-box ideas. So those are the aspects I will imagine the future teachers have to be pay attention to.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So maybe we can take one more question from the floor first. We saw a number of students raising their hands just now. So maybe this boy here first.
Dear Professor Zhang, I'm Tom, and my question is, as the technology of AI improve and advance, students can get hold of the information by just asking AI, and sometimes it's very effective in some extent. So what's your vision of AI in the future of teaching and learning at HKU? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. In fact, that's a danger, where if AI do a lot of things for you, it's like you used to be walking the Hong Kong street, but suddenly you got a bicycle or a car, automatic car, you don't have to drive, and so you can go anywhere, and your leg will be thinner and thinner. You will lose some muscles, am I right? That's the problem. That's the problem. At a certain point, you may not be able to walk, and the future human may evolve after 100 years, and they look different. Their leg is very thin, maybe, right, if they don't walk. So the same thing applies. When you see a lot of things AI can do for you, you have to ask yourself, are you become disabled in some way, right? And so ask critical questions and do a lot of deep thinking, deep diving of the questions, which AI essentially is a tool. Think about this, right? You still have to ask what questions and what kind of depths of the questions. So those are the things our students need to pay attention. Don't be too lazy. Otherwise, your brain will become smaller as well.
Yeah, I think that education plays a vital role in shaping our future, and AI may be one of the tools that can help shape our future. But ultimately, what our future is like is dependent on us, ourselves, humans. So I know that several students here have prepared some questions related to their future learning and also development. And I myself, as a student myself too, I'm also very curious about how Professor Zhang, as an educator, continues your learning and professional development. So maybe we can invite Celia to ask the question first.
Good afternoon, Mr. Zhang. And my question is, how do we increase students' interest or knowledge towards innovation and technology through education to establish a long-term effect on them? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I think actually we have two principles here, many teachers here. Usually anywhere, whether it's Hong Kong, US, or China, mainland China, there's a lot of actually government-required curriculums. You have to finish certain credits and so on, right? But beyond that, now I hope that our principals and teachers still have some room to give a student to freely develop some capabilities. For example, you could have a club in the secondary school, robotics club, or AI club, or AI/arts. So some people use AI to generate the different arts or dancing with AI and so on. So those are the things I hope that school can look into. Again, not depend on how much time and they are allowed to do that. But and I would strongly suggest our government relax that curriculum a little bit, so give the student much more time, because we actually has to reform, keep update our program, our curriculum, so that we can keep up with the pace of the new technology arrival and so on. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so now that you mentioned about a lot of different clubs, like AI club, those sorts of things, how do you think educators in secondary school can apply that into the curriculum? Should they have ChatGPT as part of the curriculum where students can actually use it during class? Or do you think that maybe it's not mature enough, this technology, and we need to give time for it to really be suitable for teaching purposes?
Wow, a tough question. If I answer anything tomorrow, will be newspaper. But anyhow, I think actually we should keep open-minded to that. And because this has a huge potential. Now, of course, this related with my general philosophy, not only Hong Kong U, but generally, I think in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, people are quite conservative. We don't want to make a mistake. Okay, if principal makes a mistake, tomorrow he will be in trouble or something. But the society, like us, Hong Kong is a very open society. We are the place where East meets the West and all the cultures mix here and so on. We should actually dare to actually venture out some new things. So I would encourage you to try some new things. Of course, whether you use that in your curriculum or not, that's your discretion. But I would not actually try to say, well, there's too much risk there, we don't do that. But then you will be falling behind. You will be falling behind. So try something new, test it out. If something works, use it. And if not working, that's fine. And I do hope that, again, this is beyond AI and things, our secondary education, including also our university education, we should be bold. We should be creative, should be out of box. Yes, we're going to make maybe 5% of mistake, so what? Especially for young people. You should not be afraid of making mistakes. Making mistakes is a good thing, okay? Because that you can learn, you can improve, you can do a lot of things other people cannot do. So those are my advice for a young student that don't be bookworm. When you, after 30 years, you will look back your life, actually. Those of your friends who are bold, innovative, dare to do something out of box, they are going to be successors in whatever they do.
I think it's really important to be bold, especially in learning, like bold to learn things that are very different from your current field and bold to try out different things. And that is what keeps us moving forward. So if we only get confined to our own space, then we cannot go forward as a society as a whole. So maybe Phoebus can ask your question about future development as well.
Okay, so good afternoon, Mr. Zhang. So my question is with the advanced modern technology nowadays, so how do you think universities in Hong Kong can collaborate with all secondary school students in order to have them gain better knowledge of their future careers, maybe in Hong Kong?
Very good. I think actually the university should do more interactions with our secondary schools and even younger one. In fact, there are some professors believe, not I believe, okay, but I tend to collect that and share with you, that creativity actually is inversely proportional to the age. So you guys actually are more creative than me. I'm too old. And in fact, so the best time actually is in secondary, even younger actually, to make students more creative and so on. But however, our education system as well as the curriculum, because you have DSE and all of this as a guidance of how much scoring you get, and this actually really bound our students, how much time you can spend on extra curriculum activities. And so for that, I would encourage our students really look out some other new things beyond the classroom, beyond the book you're taking and classes you're taking, right?
So you mentioned that we can always look beyond, and I think that's also correlating back to our topic here about reading, because apart from reading textbooks, I think that a lot of you here actually like reading things that are not related to school. And how do you usually pick the books that you read, if it's for leisure or other purposes?
Well, I guess a lot of people has a different interest. Some students interested in sports, they will read a lot of legendary biography, and some people are interested in how you make news or movie or arts. So I guess depend on different people. And a lot of time, actually your friends in circle, you have a couple of friends can refer your book as well. So that's and of course the teachers, I'm sure they have a lot of recommendations too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Yo-Yo also has a question related to future development in science. Because I know, Yo-Yo, you all actually have an interest towards science. So now that we have Professor Zhang here, you can ask him about your own aspirations.
Because our school have a IAL course in HLC, so there are quite a lot of my schoolmates, and including me, that developed an interest towards science and may want to become a professor like you. But something that it is not possible to become one in Hong Kong. So what do you think about this?
A good question. And in fact, the science or not, actually science is a knowledge, first of all. At the same time, more important than knowledge is the way to think, the way to think. So I guess, in Hong Kong, in mainland as well, that a lot of secondary school students and parents really want to design their kids or yourself in terms of career development. I want to be a doctor, I want to be a dentist, I want to be a school teacher, a lawyer, and so on. Now, that's nothing wrong with it. You have a career goal. But at the same time, don't set it too early. Because with AI and things are changing so quickly. And so many of you heard about lifetime learning, right? It's not actually about some knowledge. Some knowledge will be obsolete in 20 years. So what you learn today in Hong Kong U may be obsolete in 20 years. What left is how you think differently than others, and out of the box. So I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, he like me as a scientist, and he want to do a science, become professor, but later on he become an entrepreneur and open a factory doing this, making this grass mower, these machines. But now the grass mower become robots. They walk themselves, not by human to roll it, right? But the problem comes, when these robots rose randomly, they couldn't evenly cut the grass. There's always some spots, of grass still there, right? So he hired, his teacher, the university teacher, professor, is a mathematician. And the son, actually I took it back. His father is a mathematician. teaching in university, but father has a student, couldn't find a job as a mathematician because, that's besides a teacher but then the father forced him to hire this mathematician. The mathematician sits there, couldn't do a machine design and so on, but find these problems, how the robots works. And he using mathematics, design the minimum actually pass to remove all the grass. And that's a mathematical problem. But simple for a mathematician, but actually for a company who trouble with that for years, actually how you build the robots to remove all the grass, right? So those are the things you think about actually how a scientist not only use knowledge, but also can think out of the box. And that's very essential. So I would encourage, yes, set your goal high. And I think you will find many of our students here can actually go pursue careers in engineer, scientist, or professors. There's nothing, one of my mentors was a Hong Kong U graduate, 1967. He was one of Hong Kong secondary school graduates since, many years ago. He was a famous professor, Yeah, so you can be.
I think that a lot of us may be taught by a lot of maybe your parents, maybe what you have to become in the future, but always keep your mind open. And even if you're studying something that's really confined, like whether I study dentistry, so I can also try different things, like being MC as well, and taking it as my hobby. And I think that what we value nowadays is also being a multifaceted person. So maybe sometimes it's not just about having a really particular knowledge in a really deep way, but some people can have really good knowledge and really good skills in multi areas, and that can also be one of their advantages in the future. So maybe we can take one more question from the floor. Maybe this boy here. I see that he's been waiting. He's raised his hand just now as well. And then we'll have the opportunity for the other girl to ask.
Good afternoon, Professor Zhang. My name is Arnold. I'm a former student. A lot of my friends and I want to study at a famous university like HKU. What advice would you give to former students to prepare themselves for their university life? Thank you.
So we have a really young student here today. He's only in Form 1. Yeah. And how can we prepare early to get into HKU?
Well, you probably will be the best to answer that. But she just, about to graduate from Hong Kong U. So I guess actually, whether to get into Hong Kong U or other equally good university, I think study, of course, seriously, but open your mind, as our MC just say. The life is about multi-dimensional. And don't just study books or get a good score. That's one thing, but there's many other things. Develop your other skills, emotional skills and the emotional ability, intelligence, as well as your leadership skills. At the secondary, you may be a group leader, or you can be develop some hobbies like a cameraman or some other arts inspirations. So keep yourself open and so on. Now, don't really think just getting one university or one top places is the goal. This is one of the goals, but there are many other things in life could be treasurable. And I really want, especially students from Asia, not only these in Hong Kong, but Japan, Taiwan, anywhere else, they really are focused on one thing in the secondary school, going to a top university. But I'm telling you, that should be one goal, one of the goals, but there are many other goals. And you will find that when you are reach 40, 50s, there are many things are more meaningful than where you go to attending college.
Yes, and I can assure you that you have one quality at least that will help you get into HKU. That is the eagerness to learn, because you are sitting here today and you have asked Professor Zhang a question. So I think that that's really admirable already. So let's take the other question from the girl just now.
Good afternoon, Professor Zhang. My name is Bobo, and it has been reflected that teens in Hong Kong are reading books less and less. What impact do you think will have, and what do you think can be done to improve the reading atmosphere in Hong Kong?
Well, reading books, how we define it, are paper books or include the online materials. Is that include online materials? We do, right? So you're saying that even include online materials, that there are less readings now, today, right? Just books. Now, then I would say if you combine reading books, the paper books, and online, if that's actually keep a constant, pretty much the same as before, that's not bad. It's just different form of reading. But I will also broaden my definition of reading books, including some online books as well, online materials. So of course, reading is very important in general. So I would say read more where you can acquire knowledge, but most importantly, keep the critical thinking, the second book I recommended. And after reading or after one book, keep it very critical and say, well, I don't believe this. And I can share with you, I don't know if this is true or not. And I try to ask some of my Jewish friends and why you guys are so smart. And you only have maybe 15 million people in the world as a population, but you won maybe 15% or 20% of Nobel Prize, right? That's huge. And one of the answers they give me, I don't know whether it's authentic or not, is actually they, in their Jewish synagogue, I believe, they actually in the Bible study, the teacher challenged the kids, say, hey, don't believe this book. Let's read this, but everybody challenges this. So that's how actually these small young kids challenge the authority, challenge the teacher. That's first, don't believe it, and then we try to convince them. Right, and that's the way to sharpen your mind and to make you think deeper than others. Okay, so those are very important, very important.
What sort of activities will you recommend our secondary school students to join in order to train their critical thinking, as you have mentioned? Like, is there any particular activity that they can join in order to have better critical thinking? Or maybe during reading, like what goes through your mind? Like when you read a line and you'll think, oh, is this right? Will you go online to check, or will you ask your friends?
Yeah, very good question. Now, there are simple way to do in the college. In Hong Kong U, we have various of clubs and so on. Now, in some secondary school, you may have a debate club. Right. Those are actually very much of, in the short time you have to respond, and right, and that's exercise, I call exercise of your brain, right? So that's very powerful. On the other hand, now I don't know the culture in Hong Kong secondary school, whether our principals and teachers are tolerable to student questions. If a student want to ask a questions, is that a popular culture here? I would encourage a student ask a teacher a question. And of course, you keep the question and answer concise, don't cost too much time. But that is very essential. Student, ask a question among yourself and ask teachers during the class.
Yes.
And I hope that culture, our principals and teachers can tolerate some of those questions so that, yeah, it may spend some of your time and maybe some of the questions are not so advanced, but bear with it because this is essential growing a part of the student intelligence.
Now that you mentioned the power of questions, is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? Or students on the stage can also ask Professor Zhang further questions. Anyone who is really eager to learn? I think that, yes. Sure.
Okay.
It's glad to meet you, Professor. So you as a scientist, researcher, how did you emerge yourself becoming the president of a renowned university, and now you're an executive and or a manager of the university? Yeah.
Thank you. Well, as a scientist, when you grow up and you learn how to discover things and so on, but at the same time, you find more meaningful how you help your colleagues to grow, to be successful. So I find it very, very interesting that when I work with a group of colleagues and work together, and gradually I've become a leader and also administrator. And so before I came to Hong Kong U, I already managed large troops of scientists. We work together looking at the bigger questions, the bigger challenges. So that makes a very, very interesting job. And now come to Hong Kong U, of course, it's very different. Not only I manage the science, but also manage the arts and architecture, dentistry, medicine, and so on. So it's a very diverse spectrum and takes much different set of skills than just being a scientist to be a little smart. Sometimes you have to be pretend as not that smart. So yeah, it's different type of job. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that moving on from a scientist to another post which requires more management and requires different fields, it will also keep engaging you to start learning different fields of stuff as well. And that's also what you mentioned about continuous development and also lifelong development. I remember that some of our students also have some questions related to their own personal development. Perhaps any one of you would like to ask? Yes, Megan?
Thank you. Hello, Professor Zhang. It's me again, Megan. So may I ask, how does students in HKU be a global citizen? Like, how does HKU help them to be a global citizen? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, some of you probably know Hong Kong U has been ranked world #1 as the most internationalized university. And we are very proud of last 3 or 4 years straight, we have been ranked #1 in the world. So that is not easy to achieve. First of all, we have to really expand our student international global perspective. And we have, 2/3 of our teachers are, international scholars. And also, we send our students, I believe also at the 2/3 or 70%, going out of Hong Kong, whether go to mainland Japan, US, Europe. They have, during their 4 years of study, they have this experience of overseas experience, spending from few months to few weeks to study, whether in Paris, in New York, or in Tokyo, and so on. So those are the really special perspectives that makes our student very unique. But of course, I have to say, last few years of COVID makes very difficult for traveling and so on. But we are resuming this. So indeed, actually, a global citizen is not only just the knowledge and how you expose, but also your mindset. I want to remind our Hong Kong secondary school student that keep yourself open-minded. Don't think just everything Hong Kong. You have to think about the world problems. Yes, you may not be able to tackle them today, but if you think that big, your perspective is big. And when you become, whether teacher or banker, and your actually perspective is very broad. And that is very important to be a global citizen.
I think that having a global vision is already very important since secondary school. So if there are any opportunities like going on to exchange, or even within the Hong Kong Federation of Youth Groups, we have a lot of activities that goes to different places. Just feel free to join them and broaden your horizons, and you'll definitely learn a lot from how other people learn, or just take a look at how other cultures are, and all these are very, very interesting. So let's just take one more question. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question, whether on stage or not on stage? One last question.
Good afternoon, Professor Zhang. I would like to ask, since AI is a very powerful tool, how do you think that it could help secondary school students in their studies?
Definitely. I think AI is a very useful. It will become more useful. It's like you have a pet at home, gradually become smarter. But they are still pet for now. Okay, so how that can help us to learn more efficiently and so on. For example, if you are trying to search Google online for some topic, let's say, what is global warming? Now, you can search and read a lot through different category and so on. That takes 3 hours to read. But now, if you ask ChatGPT to generate 3-page abstract of global warming, they will synthesize all the best examples and so on. Boom, in 10 seconds, you will have that. So that saves you at least 1 hour. So that makes it more efficient. But again, we have to, while we enjoy that efficiency enhancement and so on, we have to keep in mind, we have to ask a tough question for AI. and to ourselves.
I guess that really concludes our whole really fruitful session. That is to always remember to ask yourself and AI, whether or new technologies come up, ask them tough questions and stay creative and stay innovative. Always try to look broader and aim high. I think that's what Professor Zhang's main point is today. So I think this marks the end of our really engaging and thought-provoking session with Professor Zhang. Let's give him a big round of applause.
即刻 comment、like、share 同埋 subscribe 我哋 M21，兼撳著埋個鐘仔啦！